January, check. Alright guys, welcome back to my channel. I am Zach with Zacks Books, and today I've got for you my January wrap-up. So I read 14 books this month, and I had some good ones, I had some bad ones, and I'm going to share with you the list I have. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and let's hop into the list. Alright guys, so I do have this in not like a specific order, but I have it from like least favorite to like my favorite books of the month. There were a couple of big heavy hitters that I really did enjoy, and they were kind of hard to put in a specific order, so that's why, like, if I remember them being good, they're towards the bottom of the stack because they were good. However, there are a couple that did stand out as ones that just purely sucked, and it just didn't click for me, and I really did not enjoy them. So we're going to get this thing started. First one up is The Boy from the Woods, Harlan Coben. I don't really have a lot of positive things to say about this book. Now that I've sit on this book for about a month, this was the first book I read in 2021. Now that I've kind of sat on it, I remember literally nothing about it. I remember the beginning part where there was a kid who got lost in the woods, and then a girl went missing in the woods, and I think it was that same boy's daughter. Like, it was not like described to me as well as I am remembering it. And I got lost in the middle, and I originally gave it 3.5 stars on my Goodreads. Again, check out my Goodreads down below. I'm going to try and remember the star ratings for these books, but check out the Goodreads. They are the key to my ratings. But I really just did not like this book, and I gave it 3.5 stars, but honestly, I think it's closer to like a 2. Will I still read a Harlan Coben book? Probably. I'll probably give it another read. But I couldn't get into this one, and it didn't click for me. So that's why it's my least favorite book of January. So let's hop into the next one. Also, going back to like the Goodreads, it's been a while since I updated like my thoughts on these. So like these were like my Goodread reviews for these books were like the initial ones I had after I finished the book, and now that I've kind of sat and thought about them, like, this is my now thoughts on them, and that's why, you know, I ended up with the order I have. So, jumping into the next one. Tender is the Flesh by Augustina Bastarrica. I believe that's pronounced correctly. This book was okay. It had a good premise with the whole, like, meat no longer comes from animals, it comes from people. Kind of like the Soylent Green thing. I think that was the Twilight episode. Don't quote me on that. I'm not sure. But like Soylent Green is people. Well, now in the future, meat is people. And like there's certain meats you can have. And like if you cut a person, that meat is tainted. They can't be made into good meat. They just get killed. So it was weird. And then one of the butchers like marries a girl that he was supposed to kill, and they started a family, but then something else happened. Another book where it started off good and strong, and then it just kind of took a weird... It went a different direction than what I initially had thought. I gave this like 3 stars, I think. It might have been 4. Again, Goodreads, look at it. But I would say now it's probably a 3-star. Just because, like I said, the ending, it took a weird turn that I didn't expect it to make a turn like that, and I didn't like it. So again, 3/4 of it started out strong, last a little bit, not so good. I read this one also. The next one is also in this case because they were highly hyped books that were released, I think, last year, and then one of them was actually this year. I didn't see the hype with this one, to be honest. At the beginning I did, but then it tanked for me at the end, so that's why it's towards the bottom of the list for January. So let's get to book number 3. Next up is A House at the Bottom of a Lake by Josh Malerman. So I've read 2 other books by Josh Malerman, Mallory and Bird Box, and both of those were phenomenal books. Really enjoyed the stories. I love the premise of Bird Box and that whole like world and atmosphere. And then this one happened, and they all can't be gems. I'll say that much. I read this thinking it was going to be a really solid book. Some other people who I know have read it, have given it like 4 stars, 5 stars, really enjoyed the book, loved the story. The ending sucked, in my opinion. They leave it kind of vague. Like, you kind of think it ends one way, but, like, they kind of leave it up to you. I mean, they make it, like, obvious, like, oh, yeah, there it is. There's the house at the bottom of a lake. Like, but, I don't know. I really just didn't like the ending. It was a good premise, a good story, like, what's this house doing at the bottom of a lake? What's the point of it being there? And then one day it just disappeared, and why? There's no, like, supernatural aspect. And then there's a weird sex scene in there when they're, like, in the house at the bottom of a lake, and they're having sex, and the guy, like, describes, like, when he pulls out and, like, the jizz, like, floats up to the ceiling. And then all of a sudden they start hearing footsteps up above them, and it gets really weird. And they, like, since they're wearing scuba stuff, they can't be kissing. Like, it was really weird descriptive stuff. And I've read Stephen King before, and there are some weird scenes. The weird crap at the end of it. But even that was just like, yeah, it was weird, but this, I just didn't see a point in that. There's no need for this. Like that part in this book, I feel like there was no need for it. Didn't need to be there. And I don't know. I just didn't like this book as much. I honestly enjoyed Tender as the Flesh better, but that's why I said they're kind of in groupings of like bad, good, decent, whatever. So, yeah, House at the Bottom of a Lake, I'd probably have to give it 3 stars. So, like I said, and I think that's about what I gave it. So, that's book number 3 of the month. Let's get into book number 4. Next up is the first of 2 Stephen King books I read this month. Just kind of like a Kingless month, but whatever. Maybe February a little bit more. We'll see. We'll figure it out. That is Cycle of the Werewolf. This is a really short book, and I read it in probably like an hour, maybe even less. But it was a weird story, and I didn't quite understand the point of it. I don't think it had anything to do with like a Dark Tower reference. I feel like this book isn't really talked about as much with Stephen King because of how small it is, and kind of like I didn't see the point in it. Obviously, it's kind of showing like the cycle of like a werewolf, you know, all through the months, January through December. And I just didn't understand why the book happened. I'll say that much. Otherwise, it was a good story. I was just confused of its existence. And I know I keep repeating myself with that, but that's like honestly my opinion of the book. Is like it's a Stephen King book. I have to read it because I want to read all of it. All of the things he's written. And I had to go through this, and I didn't understand why this was a thing. It's really thin. It's got no reference to the Dark Tower that I can think of. No reference to anything else. It's not even in like a regular town he does it in. I don't know. It's a weird book. I think I gave it 3.5 stars. That's probably about right. Maybe 3. But yeah, short book. That's Cycle the Werewolf. Alright, next book up is The Guest List by Lucy Foley. This book actually won Goodreads Top Thriller of 2020. We actually did a reading vlog with that where it actually had The Boy from the Woods and this one. Check that out up here if you have not seen that video yet. I really enjoyed this book. It was really solid. The story was cool. I'm starting to get more into like the British, like UK narrators. I've been kind of getting more into them. When I first started out, I like really couldn't get into the books that they narrated. I remember when I read The Whisper Man, that was a travesty and a half. I really didn't like it, and Danielle actually didn't like it that much either. But I've been kind of getting more into them, and The Guest List had like everyone was pretty much a British or UK character, like narrator. The story was good. I really enjoyed it, and with this one and the next one, they're kind of like suspenseful, like, endings where I can't really talk about it that much. I will say the person who ended up being the killer in this was not somebody who I expected it to be. This was one of those good old, like, classic, like, whodunits, and so was the next one. And it was a solid story. I want to say this was 4 stars. It might have been, yeah, about 4 stars. Again, Goodreads is key. Take a look at that. Or the video I did on this. Like I said, I did a video on this, and I think it was 4 stars. If you want more in-depth, like, analysis stuff with that, check out that video, because I talked about it way more than I am now. But overall, good book. Really enjoyed it. And that's the guest list. The next book up is One by One by Ruth Ware. This was kind of like the same thing as guest list. It was like an old-fashioned whodunit. It's a group of people who have this phone company that's released. They come up with this phone app called Snoop, and what it does is, I think in the reading vlog I did with this, I called it like the stupidest app ever. You can listen to a song that a celebrity is listening to. Like, if you give a flying hoot about what the hell Kim Kardashian's listening to at this exact moment, you can listen to it with that person, even though you're thousands of miles away. That is such a stupid app. You can also just listen to a flippin' radio station and probably get the same aspect. Like, I get it. If you change states, sometimes channels change, whatever. I personally don't care what the hell people are listening to on the radio. I want to know, I care about what I'm listening to on the radio. It was a dumb app, idea, in my opinion. And if you actually like the app idea, I get no idea why. I just didn't. But otherwise, the book was solid. They go to a ski resort, and a big storm hits. Somebody goes missing in the storm, and then somebody else ends up biting the bullet, and people kind of start dying one by one. And then they kind of split up, and 2 people are left at the cabin or the lodge, and then you find out who the killer is because it's one of the 2 of them. Yeah, that's pretty much how it goes down in the book. And it's not somebody who you really think it is until you kind of get to the last 5, because somebody starts kind of acting a little sus. But overall, I think I give this 4 stars again. Maybe 4.5. Again, look at Goodreads, I keep saying it. But yeah, good book. Really recommend it. And that's One by One. Next up is The Haunting of Gillespie House by Darcy Coates. This was a book I actually really enjoyed. Darcy Coates is an author I'm trying to get into. She writes a lot of like haunted house stuff, ghost story stuff, and I really am into that kind of stuff now. So this is a little girl who, not like a little girl, but a girl who like watches this house for an older lady, and there's like been like a mystery going on in the house, and she's trying to figure out what it is. There's weird stuff that happens in the house that people are just assuming, like the wind blowing on doors. There's a secret room, and then there's a garden outside, and there's a whole bunch of weird stuff that takes place in the house, and it makes you think that there is a spirit, and then you find out the truth at the end. And it's a really solid story. I really enjoyed it, and I'm going to keep reading Darcy Coates, obviously, and keep on going with her stuff. She does have a couple of series that are out. Am I planning to do an analysis video with Darcy Coates? Maybe. I started one with Nick Cutter. That kind of went out of hand because The Deep was not as good as The Troop was. And I haven't even started Little Heaven, and that one doesn't even sound to be like the greatest thing ever, in my opinion. But, I don't know. Maybe I'll do one with Darcy Coates. I know the Voices in the Snow series is up to, I think, 4 books now, so maybe I'll do that series. I don't know. But Darcy Coates so far has been a pretty hit author for me, so maybe she'll be my hit of 2021. We'll find out, though, coming up this year. There you have The Haunting of Gillespie House. Next up is 12 Nights at Rotterhouse by J.W. Ocker. This book was really messed up in so many different ways. There's a lot of things that really were just like weird with this book, and it made it really good. We actually did a reading vlog with this, with like a day in the life with this and actually The Haunting of Gillespie House. If you have not seen that video, check it out up here. And I really enjoyed the book. The story was solid. A writer's like, yeah, I want to go spend some nights in this haunted house because it's like got a haunting history. And the woman at first is like, no, you're just like a flippant solicitor. Leave me alone. I don't want anyone going in the house. He ends up breaking into the house anyway. Then he invites his friend over to stay in the house with him. And they do. And it's supposed to be... in the book, they mention 2 weeks. He wants to spend 14 days, 13 nights. And he doesn't even make it to day 13. He only gets to 12, which is why it's 12 Days of Rat House. I'm not going to explain what happens, but it takes a really weird turn, a dark twist, and I was completely there for it. I really loved it. He sees apparitions with his friend. He hears a bunch of noises. Like at some point there's an arm in a dumbwaiter. I figured that out. Thank you, people, if you have seen that video, and I had no idea what the hell I was talking about. It's a dumbwaiter. They found an arm in a dumbwaiter, and it was a black arm, and the house has got like these weird mannequin thingies in the basement, like wax figures, and none of them were black. His friend was black. I had done a prediction saying what was going to happen, and it ended up being right, so I was pretty excited. Yay me. Check out the video. But yeah, I ended up with giving this like 4.5 stars. Or something like that. 4.25. Again, Goodreads. But yes, very good book. Really enjoyed it. 12 Nights at Rat House. Next up is The Passengers by John Mars. I really enjoyed this book. This was a book about smart cars and how like easily they can be hacked into and kind of like mess with people. So there's a group of how many people was it? Like 8. I think there was 8 people in these cars, and the first couple of chapters is explaining their stories when they get into the car, and then they hear a voice saying, "Yeah, in this amount of time, you're gonna die." Let's see. There is a married couple. Both of them, the guy was cheating on her, and the girl did something else that was bad too. I think she was. I think she might have cheated on him as well. There was an Indian woman who was pregnant. There was a older woman who was an actress. There was a guy who was good friends with one of the girls in what was, I think, like the jury people who like get to decide who lives and stuff like that. Shoot, there was 2 or 3 more people. There was another person who was there was a Vietnam or World War II veteran. And there was another person who was of another race, and like it had some racial stuff going on, and I forget who the 8th person was, but there was 8 of them. They all kind of continuously, one starts, kind of, if they keep like trying to get away from something, like they keep trying to get out of the car, they try and break something, they're on surveillance like the entire time in the car. If they try to get out, the cars blow up. The guy like in charge kind of like makes the decision. Had a solid twist at the end. I kind of predicted it vaguely. The love interest story between the one girl in the jury room and one of the drivers. Kind of had a prediction something was kind of sus with the driver guy, and I ended up being right. That's pretty much the book. They end up, a couple of them end up being okay, but a solid chunk of them end up dying. But it's a good book. I highly recommend reading it. I think I gave it 4.5 stars. 4 stars. But it was a good book. Really enjoyed it. That is The Passengers. Next up was my favorite short story of the month, and that is Blankie by Keelan Patrick Burke. This dude knows how to write a short story. Oh my goodness. I really like this book. Or novella, short story, whatever the heck you want to call it. I loved it. So a baby died while it was young. Well, it was a baby, so obviously. And the dad and the mom are like grieving. The wife leaves the husband, and they bury the baby. And then the dad's like drinking at home. He goes into the baby's room, and there's a blanket. It's just sitting in the middle of the room. And he's like really dumbfounded. He's like, didn't we bury the baby with that blanket? And then he's like, oh, maybe it fell behind the crib when the movers were taking stuff out. Maybe we didn't, calls the wife. Wife shows up. Wife takes the blanket. Bad stuff starts happening. It's all the blanket's fault. And then you find out that it was something not involving the blanket whatsoever. So I thought that was a good twist. I really enjoyed the story. I wish it was something more supernatural with the blanket than what it actually ended up being. But what are you going to do? Again, gave it like 4.5 stars. Really enjoyed the book. Highly recommend it. And there you have, Blankie. It was a good read. Next up was honestly just a random book that I just felt like reading this month. And it actually ended up being a really solid book. I think I gave it 5 stars. This was one of 2 or 3 5 stars for this month. And that was Psycho by Robert Bloch. This was a really solid book. I honestly don't remember if this came out before the movie or if the movie inspired this book. Nope, it actually says it right in the back of the book. The classic that spawned the movie. There you go. Look at that. Book came first. Really solid book. Really enjoyed it. Really creepy parts. I did this one with audiobook. I recommend doing it with audiobook because you get that creepy atmosphere. Weird music plays. It's a really good book. It's just like the movie. Norman Bates is a hotel owner, and well, not like an owner, but like he runs a motel, and his mom is with him. And obviously, if you've seen the movie, you know the twist. And he murders somebody, or well, his mother murders somebody. I'm like really trying to not spoil the book, but I'm just assuming you guys have seen the movie, so I'm sorry if I did just spoil something for you. The mom ends up going into the shower. You see the normal scene with the knife and the screeching, the screaming, the blood goes down the drain, and then detective work goes into play. A whole bunch of people try and investigate. They keep asking him questions. He's really, really sus about everything, and that's pretty much how it goes without spoiling the ending. There's a big twist. I love it. It's a really good book. 5 stars. This actually was really creepy. So if you want something that's going to be kind of chilling to read, I would definitely recommend Psycho. So there you have Psycho. The next 3 are my favorite books I read in January, obviously because they're the last 3. But they are really solid stories, and I loved all of them. The first one is Brother by Anya Alborn. This was a book Danielle recommended. And this was a really fucking good book. I honestly think I gave it 4 on Goodreads, but this is for sure a 5 star. Now that I've sat on it, it's a really good book. So it's this family, one of the brothers who's big and nasty, kind of like a Mice and Men. Where there's the one big guy, Lenny, and then the smaller, smarter guy, George. And this is kind of close with that. Michael is this big dude, and he's got an older brother who's kind of smaller, but he's smarter, and he abuses the hell out of him. There's a sister. I don't think everyone is adopted. I think it's just Michael who is adopted. And the family's all messed up. It's really weird. The sister wants to sleep with Michael, and is we're not blood related. Shit gets really weird. It's a really messed up book, but it's really good. The ending has got a decent twist in it, but God, it's just when I read this book, I wasn't really thinking okay, this is a really solid book. I'm just yeah, this is a good book. But now I'm holy crap, this is really good. So I don't want to spoil anything else, but it was a really solid read. I highly recommend it. And some parts you're really gonna hate some people, and some parts you're gonna be this is a loving book. But that's Brother, 5 stars. Please read the book. Really solid. Loved it. Next up is the second Stephen King book I read, and I feel that I'm going to get some heat for this because it's not a favorite book, and a lot of people didn't like the movie, but I'm known to really enjoy things that people don't like. And that is Dreamcatcher. this book was really solid. Does it get really effed up when it comes to the whole, it switches narrative? Like, at the beginning, it's like 4 friends, they meet up at this cabin every year, the hole in the wall, and God, this book was like so good, it's stupid, because everybody hates this book. It changes like, to me, you could definitely tell the difference. He was kind of writing this when he had his accident in the late 90s, early 2000s, and he was drugged up like crazy. There's a lot of poop references in this book. There's a lot of farting references in this book. There's actually creatures called shit weasels in this book. This alien invasion kind of takes place when these 4 friends are in a cabin, which they go there annually, like I said. And it starts out like just like a story like that. You know, there's 4 friends, they're up in a cabin, they hang out there every year, they have psychic abilities, and then all of a sudden, 2 of them go to the shop to go get some supplies before a big storm hits. The other 2 go hunting, and they stumble across a guy in the woods. And the guy ends up being really sick, and all hell kind of breaks loose from there. The 2 friends who went out in the shop, they find a lady in the woods, just kind of sitting in the middle of the road. They get in an accident, so they're kind of split up. I will say I was a little, obviously I knew it was going to happen, but I was a little upset with, you know, a couple of them didn't make it. But the ending did kind of differ from the movie. I think the ending kind of like tailed into like this weird, it was like a weird ending. Like, it kind of like, there's a big build up because they're trying to stop one of the friends to get to this place so he can contaminate like the entire world with these aliens. And then they meet up somewhere. A whole bunch of crap happens at the end. I don't think it ended the same way as it did in the book or in the movie, but I really enjoyed it. 4.5 stars. Does this crack my Stephen King top 10 list? I'm going to be honest, yes it does. And a lot of people are going to give me crap for it. I know it. And I just really enjoyed it. I don't know what it was. It's a good book. Really enjoyed it. We also did this in a reading vlog with One by One, and I can't remember what the other book was in this. One by One, and actually the next one I'm going to talk about. So if you haven't seen that reading vlog, we'll put that up here. It was kind of like my winter reading vlog, I think is what we titled it. So, but yeah, Dreamcatcher, really good book, and a lot of people hate it. I'm different. Next up is my favorite book that I read in January, and that is The Winter People, Jennifer McMahon. It did give off Pet Sematary vibes. That should kind of, I'm not going to say sum up the whole book, but it's a strong reason why this book was so good to me is because it kind of gave off the aspect of Pet Sematary and like Stephen King. It gave off like that Pet Sematary vibe of, you know, something dying, you bury it in a place and it comes back. And in this case, it's like some kind of ritual you do to bring the dead back for a couple of days, but then something happens to this one incident and the person's like still alive like 30, 40 years, like 50 years later. I forget the time frame is, but it was like almost 100 years later and the person's still alive. So I really, really liked this book. It was solid. Story was great. I do have another Jennifer McMahon book I'm possibly going to be reading. I want to say, I think it's called The Invited. I could be wrong, but I think it's The Invited by Jennifer McMahon. I think it's more like a ghost story, so it's kind of like what this one was, but not winter. But yeah, really solid book. Loved it. 5 stars. Not even a question. So there you have The Winter People. All right, guys, that is my January wrap up. 14 books. Really good month. Overall ratings were probably about 3 3/4 to 4 stars for every book I read. It's a really solid month. What were some of your favorite books for January? Let me know in the comments down below. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Later.